Hello there everybody, welcome back to my channel Beautiful. How are you doing today? My name is Joesephyr and welcome to the first Should You Pull video for Dissidia Final Fantasy Opera Omnia that's going to be talking about FR weapons and the Shinryu difficulty events. So this video is being released a little bit prior to the community stream where things are being announced, so this is very much subject to change, but I thought I would get ahead of the game a little bit and speak about Kain, Warrior of Light, and the event that comes with them both, all their fabulous new upgrades, etc. So if you'd like to stay tuned and keep on watching, then you'll get to hear all about all that stuff and more. Now before we get started, don't forget to check out all of my social media links down in the description box below, including Twitch, where you can find me streaming every Dissidia Opera Omnia event as it goes live, as well as plenty of other things like Final Fantasy Count Up. 4-Job Fiesta has also started, so I'm going to get stuck into FF5 as my favourite Final Fantasy once again, with all the nice little extra changes that comes along with that. We're hitting P4S over on Final Fantasy 14 as well, which I know is a little slow compared to some other bigger teams out there, but I'm very proud of my team for getting us to where we are. So if you'd like to come in and join in with all of that, then consider coming and having a look on Twitch as well. Over on Patreon, I do shout out one of my patrons every time I release a video, and today that person is going to be Akahime, who has Fusoya on their title card and is a massive fan of Final Fantasy IV and is brand new to my Patreon, so a massive thank you goes out to you. And we're actually closing on 150 patrons at the moment, which I'm going to introduce a new incentive for Patreon if we can hit that point for Final Fantasy XIV related stuff. So if you're interested in that and so many other benefits, then perhaps consider clicking on the link in the description box below, and thank you very much for considering it if you decide to do so. And of course, lastly, don't forget to check out all the other content creators and resources out there for Dissidia Opera Omnia, as they deserve your love too. So here we are, this is the first one. We're going to be talking about the first FR weapon to come to DFFOO, but we do have some other bits and pieces to talk about first with regards to banners. So the first banner that we're going to talk about here does contain Kain's FR weapon, but it contains none of the rest of his kit. So that's something to bear in mind as well. If you're looking at these banners, the changes to some of these are that you'll see 3 LD weapons now, so they're a little bit more lenient on characters coming forward, so you tend to get somebody who's returning with their C90 already. And then you've got other characters that are going to feature here, namely Penelo and Warrior of Light, that are going to get their C90 and EX upgrades as well, whereas Kais does not, because he's already had his. And then, like I said, Kain FR does feature on here, but none of the rest of his kit does. So something for you to think about when it comes to future banners. So Penelo is the first character we're going to talk about here. Now, her rework looks extremely wordy and very, very just long-winded. But what it really amounts to is additional HP dumps in her Brave and HP attacks, which is fine. Now, I always have a bit of a soft spot for Penelo in this game. I think she's very fun to play with. She does have a way of using her abilities very quickly. She still suffers from the same problems that she's always had with her Haste Rumble and Regen Waltz, where she's very buff heavy, not aura heavy, which means that it sometimes can clash with some of your other characters' buffs. But if she's in the right situation, she can still be pretty useful. So her rework gives her additional skills and instant turn rate on both of her skills, not just Haste Rumble anymore. So that's useful. And then as long as you've got her to her level 2 of either Haste Rumble or Regen Waltz, you'll get triple HP dumps and EX recharge and splash damage on her HP plus for Haste Rumble. And then on her HP attack for Regen Waltz, you get a double HP dump that also refunds Bravery and again refills her recast gauge. Her LD, you now start with the buff from her LD. Also, before I forget, massive shout outs to Leo, Bob and Midiu for their translations over on Reddit. Without you guys, we'd all be in the dark, so thank you very much for that. You start with her LD buff, which is very useful for giving little bits and pieces of offensive buffs, like HP regens, all of that good stuff. And then her LD now has triple HP dumps, 100% AoE, that will increase in bravery each time you hit with them, so it's just going to hit really hard. And then you've also got 20% HP damage up to the party. And then her C90, her EX, is going to make it so that you get 5 HP dumps on her. And her EX has always been very cool because it doesn't rely on bravery damage to deal damage, much like Porum. And we get 50% brave damage up to the party if you're in Haste Rumble, and if you're in Regen Waltz, you get brave gains instead. So none of this is absolutely game-breaking in any way, but if, like me, you enjoy Penelo, you'll probably get something out of these upgrades. So then the other character on this banner is arguably my favourite character in all of Final Fantasy, which is Warrior of Light. I adore Warrior of Light. He is Final Fantasy, and for that reason alone, I give him his flowers. I adore this character, and I actually love him in DFFOO as well, because there is a level of safety that comes with him that no other character can quite match. But with his rework and his BT Plus and everything, we do start to notice some of the missing parts of what could be a perfect tank kit. So we'll go into what he does have. He gets significant HP damage increases, number of HP dumps across his kit, which is wonderful. Shining Shield just gets 3 HP dumps on it, and then just that's pretty much it, and applies the shield that he's been so well known for. Throw Buckler now locks all enemies, gets you 50% splash damage, and gives you 3 HP dumps again. Bitter End, which is the LD attack that gives you the special effect that makes it so you don't take HP damage for anything less than the shield you have. And at this time and day, the shields are huge. We all know this. Anyone who's played with Warrior of Light knows how big his shields can get. It's now a 6 HP dumping attack, so that's pretty good. And then Guardian Shield now has party-wide Brave damage increases as well as HP damage increases. His C90 gives him an upgrade to his EX, which makes it a 4 HP dumping attack. Obviously, this is his primary sort of healing function. He doesn't actually have the greatest healing in his kit, apart from just regens and things like that. He's more about preventing damage than regaining health. But he does get a decent amount of damage out of this. It's not a completely useless button like it used to be, and it increases his speed, and it does make a bit of a difference to him. Now, his BT weapon... His BT Plus is actually pretty solid. So Ultimate Shield now not only gives you the massive Brave regens as long as you have shields up, but you now get 50% Brave gain increases, 20% HP damage dealt up, and HP damage cap up, which is the thing you typically want from a BT Plus attack. Are you going to go into his BT phase if you have any other option? No, however, I do really enjoy characters like Warrior of Light that have BT pluses and BT effects and BT phases even, when you consider taking an LD only damage dealer as your primary damage dealer. Is a BT plus damage dealer probably going to function better? Yeah, almost certainly. But having access to a support BT phase means at least you have wiggle room to play around with some of these characters and still have a BT phase. And this was my argument for Cecil back in the day as well. Obviously, it's not quite as prevalent now. He doesn't have a counter, which is the thing that he's majorly missing that other big tanks like Galoof, Auron, Gladio, they have that. Warrior Light doesn't carry that. But he does have this all-encompassing shielding that just can do really well against a lot of fights. And Bitter End is a very powerful attack that prevents so much damage if you're expecting to take a lot of damage. So if you combine him and just his BT plus attack with a different counter-attacking or off-turn damage-dealing attacker, you'd probably find you'll get quite a lot out of him, at least in the earliest stages of FR. But if you've got Galoof and Auron, as much as it pains me to say it, because I do love this character, so you probably don't need to have him. If you have his LD, you've got access to his call ability, which is also very good because it applies the same things, and you've got access to other tanks that have better healing, better HP regens, and a counter attack of sorts. He does have HP damage cap up though, and I'd be lying if I said I wasn't going to green him just because I loved him as much as I do. So now let's take a look at the other banner that we have on offer today, which is going to be Kain's banner himself. So as I said at the beginning of the video, this is being released a little bit early. There's every chance that something could change over the course of the community stream on Monday, but if it does, then we'll have all of this information in our back pocket so that we at least know what we could expect from what can come from that. So this banner is going to contain all of Kain's kit, including his brand new LD, or his brand new FR, sorry, and his brand new BT weapon, and the return of his LD weapon. So if you don't have his LD, this is the banner that you're wanting to get it from, not the other one, because it isn't there. And then Mog is going to see a rerun here while getting a rework and his C90. And then Prompto is also there as well. So let's take a look at Mog first. So Mog's main thing is party auras as well as his follow-up attacks that come from his Water Harmony attack, so El Nino and Plasma. El Nino gives you debuff cleansing, whereas Plasma has a chance to confuse the opponent. So they've been upgraded as well thanks to his new LD board, which makes it so you get double HP dumps on both of his follow-ups, which is sorely needed because unfortunately for Mog, the rest of his kit doesn't do a lot. Like, Water Harmony has 2 HP dumps and changes his jump ability, which is a triple HP dumping attack with a free ability use, but then you get continuous jump instead, of where you can use either of his skills to get continuous jump, which the only real difference is that you gain bravery in between each HP dump. And with a 6-hit bravery attack, you probably wouldn't need it that much. It's not that much of an upgrade, so it's a little bit sad. Moogle March does have 5 HP dumps in it, which obviously adds to the follow-ups having 2, but if I'm perfectly honest, I'm not hugely impressed with what I'm seeing with Mog here, but people who love him will probably get a use out of him. And then his C90 gives him obviously a stronger EX, which gives him 3 AoE Brave HP dumps, as well as Brave and HP percentage damage from Moogle Warrior for the party. It's fine. It's very unremarkable upgrades as far as I'm concerned. Like, yeah, the debuff from El Nino is nice. Plasma may give a confuse once in a while. I just dislike the fact that Mog seems to be slap bang in the middle of like every role and not really very proficient at any one of them. Like, if you want healing and debuff cleansing, why wouldn't you take somebody like Yuna, who is also dealing pretty heavy amounts of damage anyway? And then, like, if you want a damage dealer, you have about like 100 other options that are going to deal more damage than Mog at this point. So now we finally get to have a look at Kain and what he gets from his BT and his FR and his rework and his C90. So he gets a rework, as is expected here. Jump is just a triple HP dump that gives him his primary offensive buff. It's pretty unremarkable. Gungnir, however, gets 7 HP dumps on it. It's pretty nice. Like, I mean, it's up there with your Octaslashes. Like, it's pretty solid stuff. Rising Drive, however, gets a huge upgrade here, and it actually doesn't even come from Rising Drive itself. It comes from his Lancet ability while he's in the air. If you haven't used Kain or Freya before, what their LD does is fully charges a special effect they have that allows them to jump up in the air and deal damage at the end of every turn until they decide to come back down again. They'll delay their own turns until they do. Kain delays their own turn a little bit longer than Freya, which is actually a good thing. So Lancet has 2 HP dumps in it, which doesn't sound like a lot, but they add up very quickly. And the fact that he has a BT effect, which we'll get to in a moment, that compounds this is huge. Let me tell you now, ignoring Kain's FR, Kain is probably the single most consistently used character in all of Shinryu. And yes, I'm including Camelot in that, just because of Lancet and the fact that it does so much damage in other characters' BT phases while the force gauge is open. It's just a crazy amount of damage considering what little it actually does. It's so good. Double Jump also has 3 HP dumps on it. The thing with Kain is all of the stuff that he's gotten, like Gungnir and all that, it's really nice, but you're probably not going to see any of it because he's going to be spending most of his time in the sky, at least after the first couple of weeks of him being used. And then his EX, also quite nice. It's obviously a launch attack that has a little bit of delay in it. It's got a slight increase in its recast gauge. It has 3 HP dumps in it. It's guaranteed launch. Deals splash damage, so it then guarantees a launch on any other characters that are around. Again, you're not going to see this very often, because chances are, you're using Kain, he's probably somewhere up there just throwing spears down, so I wouldn't worry too much about this. However, his AA is probably going to be useful for you just by increasing his max brave damage cap, his attack up, whilst also being active while he's in the air. So his FR weapon actually isn't very good. The main reason for this is because it being the first FR means that it's going to have to temper our expectations a little bit. Now, of course, we have foresight from the JP version to know quite how minimal the gains are from this force time effect. So the force time effect here asks for ranged bravery attack, a ranged bravery attack, or including one that's been triggered outside the turn, so obviously Kain, and also launching an enemy. But the bonuses are 5% each. that's nothing. That's really, like, when you start looking at Camlanort, and even, like, ignoring Camlanort, when you start looking into Tidus and beyond, you'll see quite how little this Kain actually is. It's really not that strong. So, honestly, the main reason to have Kain's FR is as an alternative attack during your BT phase with Kain if you're using that, because all FR attacks have a very large HP damage cap increase, so it can be used for that, and obviously it doesn't actually trigger Force Time if used during a burst phase. So it's actually honestly not that great, although people who have this, like, to begin with and use their high power stones, and bear in mind that high power stones are very expensive. If you need to know more about the actual mechanics of FRs and Shinryu, then I do have a video released a few weeks ago if you wanted to watch that, which is my primer for my Future Pools video, so you can go back and look at all the details for that. So yeah, that's pretty much all there is. Like, it launches, it has no action delay, you'll probably send him straight up into the sky, and that will be that. However, before you do that, you're probably going to want to use his BT attack first, because let me tell you, this is imperative to his kit. For one major reason, it has 30% HP damage cap up on it. The 50% brave damage cap, or brave damage dealt up, lovely. 20% extra HP damage dealt up, lovely. 30% HP and bravery damage cap up, which isn't gonna tick down because he's in the sky doing his thing, probably with a really strong call ability attached to him as well. It's crazy good. Like, even if you don't go for any other character for a while, Kain's BT and LD combination, whether you have his FR or not, is extremely powerful. However, if you have a lot of friend units that use Kain as well, you can just get all of that out of using a Kain friend, because he's up in the sky, which means his turn order's not ticking down, so he's going to be there longer than most friend units would. So whether you pull for him or not, he's going to be adding a lot of value to your party. So now let's take a quick look at the first ever Shinryu mission. Now, of course, massive shout out to DissidiaCompendium.com here for this information taken from the JP version of the game. So, again, I have already explained the base mechanics of Shinryu fights previously, so I'm not going to do that here. But I will try and make sure that everyone understands as I'm going through this, so that it makes it clearer for this particular fight. So you're going to be fighting floating eyes, so no more Lufenia orbs. We don't have to deal with those anymore. There's no instant tick down. You're going to absolutely get KO'd unless you perform a particular way. So team building is going to be a lot more prevalent going forward, because you'll need to be able to deal with the actual mechanics of the fight and the force time as they become available. So, as I've said previously in other videos, when the enemy's force gauge goes beyond certain points, certain effects will trigger. So in this particular case, when they go beyond 40%, then you get an HP poison for 10%. Once they go above 60% of their gauge, then that increases to 20%. And then when it goes up to 80%, up to 100%, it goes to a 30% HP poison aura. And then when they do hit 100%, they will perform an attack here, which recovers them from break, does a HP attack across the board, and then if they take you under 50% HP, they will paralyze you. And then the force time itself exists for a further 3 of their turns. So you can freeze this by activating your own force time or summoning. There are ways out of it, but by and large, you're going to be dealing with this force time. So HP regen is going to be hugely important here. And I will point out as well that the force time attack itself can be mitigated through other means. Like, it says here that it ignores effects that reduce HP damage, but that doesn't mean that you can't freeze them, use Warrior of Light shields to help stop the damage. While the force time is active, you have to be very careful, because any party member you have that drops below 30% HP, instantly KO'd. Like, no ifs, no buts. If they're under 30% HP, they're gone. And obviously, in combination with the 30% HP poison, this means you're going to need to be keeping your health up a lot. So Kain is obviously going to do well here, because he's up in the sky, he's not actually taking turns in order to deal damage, therefore he's not getting hit by the poison. But any other characters that you take are obviously going to be wanting to deal with that, and there's loads of ways that you have to deal with that. Alexander, even as a summon, will help here, but you're going to be needing to take a lot of damage as well, because the enemies have 60 million HP, and this is nothing compared to what we will see going forward. Do you have to have an FR for this fight? Absolutely not. No, not even a little bit. If you can make do without that, you can either bring a friend Kain that happens to have one just to increase your damage, or you could just go without one. There's been lots of parties that don't use one, particularly those that use somebody like Terra or Tidus, whilst also having very strong HP regens from outside the party, so that they never drop below that 30% threshold. We also have a secret weapon that JP never had for this particular fight, named Garnet. Garnet has everything that you would need in order to really push things through. She's got the HP regen, she's got the healing, she's got like burst healing from her EX and her LD, she's got the damage dealing, she's got off-turn damage to combine with Kain or Terra or anything like that. We have that extra tool that the JP version didn't have. So if you're worried about this particular fight, use it. There's plenty of ways around it, even if you don't want to pull for Kain. So now, of course, it's time for Would You Pull, a section of the video where you, the viewer, get your chance to let your voice be heard and let everyone know whether you'd pull on these banners and why that might be the case. So we're going to go straight into numbers here to try and get the video down in length a little bit. With Warrior of Light, we have 5% saying gems, 5% saying 100 plus tickets, 5% saying less than 100 tickets, and 84% of people saying no thank you. Now, my imagining here is, despite the fact that I haven't put it as an option here, most people will have everything that they're after from this particular banner, and they're not all that interested in Kain FR, which is the only new thing on the banner, and I definitely fall into this category. With regards to Kain's own banner, and of course, before I forget, a massive shout out to all of my patrons for casting their votes and their comments, and if you'd like to join in on the conversation over on Discord, or you'd like to cast your votes to be part of the videos yourself, then perhaps consider clicking on the link in the description box below. Anyways, with Kain, 44% of people are saying that they're going to use gems, 26% of people are saying they're going to use 100 or more tickets, 7% said less than 100 tickets, and 22% of people said no thank you. I am in the gems camp, and I believe that the difference here, this is a bit of a wild one, is because it's going to depend on two factors. Whether you already have Kain's LD or not, and whether you already have enough tokens to completely grab the BT and walk away. I am very much in the gems camp because I am in the camp where I would like to keep my BT tokens and therefore get a shot at Kain's BT through gems, and I don't have his LD, so I'd like to go in and try my best to get everything all at once. If I get the FR, cool. I'm probably not going to use high power stones or anything on it because I'd rather keep them for other character data down the line. I kind of want Kryl. But I'm also not going to use my BT tokens before the time is ready. I can absolutely get through the majority of the events that are available while Kain's still available and not pull any further than just the LD if I don't need to. So let's go into some comments. Booper Wiggum says, Kain is one of my top 5 FF characters, so probably would have been wild with my resources anyway, but he has a very strong BT and can add a lot of damage during another character's BT phase. I believe he's still usable in JP today, so he's got great longevity. I'll pity the BT if I have to on this banner, as I'm only likely to ticket Braska during his cycle, but if no FR pops, I won't chase beyond getting the BT. Very much the same boat that I'm in here. I may not pity the BT because I do have the tokens available. I will go as far as the LD and then see and reassess how I feel after that point. I imagine there will probably be free pulls for Kryl and Braska, but don't quote me on that. And as I've said, every time I get messages, every single cycle, people say, I got the BT that I tokened on a free pull. It's like, you just got to be patient. You don't have to get the BT the second it comes out. Chamberlain Skexis says, I'm going to BT token and green Kain BT and use gems on his BTFR banner since I already have everything up to LD weapons for the banner and wall BT. I love the damage Kain brings with his BT, but his FR doesn't look that interesting, so I'll just have a friend unit and wing it until Camelot releases. I think a lot of people are going to take this approach. Like, getting Kain, very, very strong idea. If you already have the LD, you probably don't need to pull here, especially if you have the tokens to grab the BT, because the FR actually isn't that great. And then finally, Ridley Kemp says, I'm passing on this banner because I have everything I want except for Kain's Burst. I'm planning on buying it with Burst tokens. I've already blued his armor, so I plan on using him extensively in the early Shinryu era, and the force is not strong with this one. I suspect this will be a common approach if the poll shows a lot of people skipping the banner. The only way I can see people really going in for Kain FR is if they somehow increase the damage percentages, but then he's already ridiculous without his FR, so I really don't think they should do that. Like, honestly, Skipping the first FR isn't a bad thing. We have much stronger ones coming down the line. Camlanor, Tidus, Charlotta, Lunafreya a little bit later on. If you don't get the BT, or if you don't get the FR whilst chasing the BT, if you are chasing the BT, I really wouldn't worry about it. So now, of course, we ask the big question. Should you be pulling for Kain, Warrior of Light, Penelo, or Mog? In the case of Penelo and Mog, honestly, it's a no. Like, they are fine. There's nothing outwardly wrong with them, but there's nothing outwardly significant about them either. They're kind of just there. Considering that they got upgrades, etc., they're nice, but I wouldn't take them very frequently, if at all, compared to other characters that do similar things to them. Warrior of Light, I will probably green my Warrior of Light because I love him as much as I do. And I do think that he has a special source in his tanking abilities that no other character really has. Like, not even Nine, who has shielding abilities as well. It's just not the same as Warrior of Light. There is an ability to take Warrior of Light into a fight and just not care about what the enemy is doing. And that's always been something I've really enjoyed. But he lacks a counter. He lacks any, like, his damage isn't great. Like, 3 HP dumps on a BT unit is not fantastic. It's not. It's actually pretty poor. Apart from his LD, you're not getting a lot of damage out of Warrior of Light compared to other BT units. But as I said before, I do like the idea of having access to an HP cap up BT when I'm not necessarily taking a BT damage dealer. Like, it opens up some more interesting team compositions. But if you like using Auron and Galoof, or later on Gladio, you'll probably find you're just going to default to them as your tank instead of Warrior of Light, because they have off-turn damage that scales very well with Force Time. Kain, I can't recommend him enough, but you probably don't have to pull for him if you already have his LD. If you don't have his LD, yes, he is incredible. I'm going in gems for this banner, a lot of people are going in gems for this banner, and it has absolutely zero to do with his FR. His FR is really underwhelming, even compared to units that come out 2 weeks after him. Like, Camlanor may have been bugged, but even if it weren't for him, Tidus is significantly better and benefits heavily from Kain anyway. So you'd rather spend the resources getting his FR and getting Kain's other stuff so that you've got that perfect composition already. So honestly, if you have the LD and you have BT tokens available and all of the free pulls have been and gone, I cannot stress that enough, then you probably find that it's the single best use of your BT tokens you're ever going to get, whilst also saving your resources. And I think that there's a lot to be said for that. But his off-turn damage is so powerful, it's still being used 9 months later in JP. It's still, like, the BT effect having 30% Brave and damage cap up is huge. Not only for him, but for the party as well. You're just not gonna get damage dealers with this much off-turn damage that scales this consistently and this well, whilst also having a BT effect that's that valuable. It's simple, but it's really, really good. Honestly, pulling for Kain is absolutely not a waste of your resources if you don't want to use your BT tokens on him. But realistically, if you're going to use Kain, you're going to want to use that BT plus, because it's going to add so much damage that during Force Time, you'll be paying dividends later. So that is all for today's video, and that is the first Shinryu event covered. Hopefully it is actually the first event covered and we don't get blindsided by something in the community stream that makes this video defunct. I'm fairly sure it won't, but you never know with this game. Let me know in the comments below whether you're pulling for Kain, whether you're saving resources, whether you're not pulling for Kain. And Kain is a hype character by a lot of people, so if you're not pulling for him, I'm very interested as to what the reasoning is. Maybe you're just happy to rely on friend unit Kains for a while, and you're not wanting to pull on Kain or Camlanor because maybe them take away a bit of a challenge for you. Let me know in the comments down below. Don't forget, of course, to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and click that bell for notifications, and I will see you on the other side. Thank you ever so much for joining me, beautiful. I'll see you later.